Hi everyone, welcome to Trading in Zone. So today, in continuation to candlestick patterns, we'll look at some of the patterns which we were looking at earlier. We were looking at the evening star and the morning star. So let's look at the evening doji star and the morning doji star. It's pretty much similar. What happens in this kind of a situation is that the second candle which you will see, you will kind of see a doji pattern appearing, and then the follow through candle might be a red candle. For example, in this situation, you see a green candle, you see a doji, and then a red candle, and the move down continues. So similarly, on a reversal as well, you'll see a red candle, you'll see a doji, and then you'll see a green candle, and then the reversal becomes pretty strong and the stock price starts moving up. So there are multiple explanations on this particular type of charting, but you can see this is again a very sharp top reversal. So you see a doji, almost a doji, not completely indecisive, because usually sometimes the dojis are something like this, where they're very small and kind of flat. So there are different types of dojis as well, which we will look at more in detail as we go forward. But from a spinning top doji perspective, these kind of candle combinations are very relevant, and these are known as one of the strongest in the books of candlestick trading. All right, so I will kind of give you a brief history on what this was all about. So this was all about one of the things, the guy called Nobunaga Oda, a major military figure in the late 16th century, was one of the three military leaders who unified feudal Japan, right? So he fought a seminal battle that occurred in very fertile rice growing province. Since the rice was a gauge of wealth at that point in time, a man was trying to kind of win the battle and make sure that the owners who were defending it couldn't win it, or he made sure that he wanted to grab those lands. So the fertile rice area which he was trying to capture had three rivers. So the three rivers, the heavily defended area, made it difficult for our man Nobunaga to cross the three rivers. The victory was his when his forces finally forded these three rivers. So they were able to cross the three rivers, and then they were able to capture. So the three river morning and evening star pattern, where it is difficult to change the trend, yet the victory of attacking army is assured when the hurdle of the three rivers is crossed. So it's meant to be one of the most strongest of the pattern, because it created a real difficulty for a man who was a very capable warrior to even cross those three rivers and occupy what he set out to. So that's the reason why the three river pattern is so famous. So apart from just looking at the morning star as a pattern in terms of a big long green body, a small red body, and then a strong red candle coming through and closing below, and the price kind of getting rejected and moving down from there onwards, is obviously one type of pattern to watch out for. However, there are some combination of candlesticks which you need to be slightly aware of, which is also that the middle candle could be a doji, and that's known as a morning doji star and a evening doji star. So continuing on to the other kind of candles which are available from a trading perspective. So there are many in terms of how they are formed. Even just with regards to the doji stars, you would also want to explore more in terms of how there is an abandoned baby in an uptrend, an abandoned baby in a downtrend, which is typically a small doji which comes and opens up as a gap up. So there is one day you will see a big green candle, and then a doji kind of appears somewhere over here. Let's assume this is like a doji candle right over here. Let me make it look like okay. So let's assume there was a big green candle, and then there was a gap up, and the next day acted as a doji, and the day after it kind of fell down. So that is also kind of a candlestick pattern which you will also know as a abandoned baby in terms of a doji. So because this is kind of somewhere over here and there is a gap up and then a gap down opening for trend reversal on top, and something very similar at the down trend reversal where you'll see a strong red candle and then an abandoned doji right like that right over here, and then a strong green candle which will come up and the price starts moving up. So very rare phenomena, but some of these are very strong patterns as well, and something what you want to refer to the image which I am referring right over here and take a cue from there. Okay, so that is something which is good to watch apart from the regular doji morning star, evening star, and the regular morning star, evening star which I have covered in the previous video. So going forward on the star patterns which we have been talking about in this particular candlestick pattern, we'll continue to cover something called as the shooting star and the inverted hammer. So a shooting star is a two-line pattern that sends a warning of an impending top. It looks like it's a name, a shooting star. It's usually not a major reversal signal as the evening star. So as what you see, a three candle combination patterns and stuff like that is something what Steve through his book makes it a point that it's much more powerful than a combination of a single candle. While the pin bar is very strong in its nature, a shooting star might not be, is what he says. As with all stars, the color of the real body is not really important. The shooting star pictorially tells us that the market opened near its low, then slowly rallied and finally backed off to close near the opening. So the stock opened, it moved up and then got rejected and came down and closed, right? So in an uptrend, so if you just assume that this is a big uptrend which is happening, so you can say that this particular reversal, it opened, tried to move up, came down and closed, could be a probable shooting star kind of a candlestick, though as you can refer to the current image which is coming up on the screen, it appears typically on a strong uptrend, and you will also see the next candle opening very close to the open price and starts moving down, which kind of indicates a change in trend. So let's continue to see what Steve kind of says. An ideal shooting star has a real body which gaps away from the prior real body, so it kind of opens slightly up, then moves up and then starts kind of closing very close to the open price. A shooting star shaped candlestick after a downturn could be a bullish signal. Such a line is called inverted hammer. So the same thing happening in a downtrend, right? A shooting star kind of pattern coming up on a downtrend on a daily candle could also be a meaning that the change in trend is happening from a candlestick perspective. So this is a Sun TV stock. I'm just trying to find if there is any pattern which I can show to all of you here on this particular stock, that a inverted hammer kind of a pattern appears in the downtrend, right? It's very important because the uptrend is a shooting star. So this is a shooting star. So you can see this is almost a shooting star because it kind of opens, tries to move up, and this is on an uptrend, then closes down, and the next day opens and starts moving down. This becomes a shooting star and the trend starts to move down. But you can also see that the rejection level around the shooting star is pretty intact and the selling continues. So what's really important is that we see something like this which is happening at the downtrend, and then you see a reversal as well, right? So you can see multiple shooting stars which we can see at the top trend, and the next day moving down, and then the stock kind of falling through the crack, though not a very strong pattern as such to just look at it on its own. It will be great to look at a green candle, a shooting star gapping, opening up and then a big red candle, and then a downtrend, which will become more like a morning star, evening star kind of a combination, which will be much more significant than a shooting star pattern in my personal view. But obviously, yes, this is a pattern. This is something which Steve spoke about. So there you go. So this can kind of become a inverted hammer. So this is a downtrend. This is a downtrend, kind of sideways move, to be honest. But on this particular trend here for the last 3-4 days, as the price starts coming down, you see a inverted hammer kind of a pattern, and the price kind of holds that particular level, and it starts moving up, and then it shoots up. So those are something what you can definitely look at. So the opposite of the shooting star is the inverted hammer discussed, which is kind of important point to note. So multiple variations in a shooting star, it is worth to note. So as per Steve, it says, is a shooting star the first type of variation on a shooting star? It is not an ideal star because there is no gap between the real bodies. It nonetheless proves the failure of the bulls to maintain their drive. So one of the phenomena, he says, is that though a shooting star is technically a gap up opening and then tries to move up and then kind of comes down on an uptrend, not necessary it has to happen always that there is a gap. Okay, it might be something which might happen just there and there, might not necessarily be a gap. So you can see this is a shooting star, but there is no real gap up opening. So it just happened right there and there. It just happened right there and there. It's not really a significant gap up, almost opened at the same price as close, or probably a little lower. But the significance of a rejection and the price closing below is very evident when the next day starts moving down as well. The third one he talks about is the shooting star has the shape of the shooting star, but it is not a true star since it does not gap away from the prior real body. However, this day shooting star should be viewed in context of the prior price action. The top of the upper shadow for shooting star is a probable rejection. So when you start seeing a shooting star, and then when you start seeing that there is a rejection which has happened on the previous day, you need to be very careful on the upper shadow or the upper wick of that particular candle. Okay, the second importance, which I guess I missed, is it does not meet part of the criteria of a shooting star, that is a star with a small real body and a long upper shadow. Yet it fails to meet some important rules. It does not appear after an uptrend, nor at the top of a congestion zone, such as it should be viewed as a small real body day with little significance. A small real body that is a spinning top reflects indecision, and the middle of a trading range indecision should be expected. So what they say as rule number 2, apart from the I kind of went to the third one, was what Steve had mentioned about the shooting star, but the second one more or less clarifies in terms of it being a doji as well, and indecision at any level, whether it is an up move or a sideways move or a bottom move. It's very important for us to really make sure that we understand that those levels can act as a strong rejection or support depending on where they form. The fourth one which he talks about is shooting star is very similar to a shooting star 3, which is the third one which I spoke. It is also not an ideal shooting star since its real body did not gap away from the prior real body, yet it was another rally attempt that faltered. It proved that bulls could not gain control. So what he's technically trying to explain, showing some of the charts on his book, is that it might gap up, it might not gap up, but what you need to watch is the price levels and how the price levels are moving. And it might not be really perfectly formed in terms of a shooting star for wherever it is reversing either to bull side or to bear side. Is another failure resistance. Shooting star is another failure at resistance. You have to admire the bull's tenacity, though in trying to push this market higher, that each failure one has to wonder how long will it be before the bulls give up. We get the answer as we make our observation. So it's very important when the shooting star kind of candle it starts forming but the price still starts going up, how far will it sustain and when will it give up would be a strong question one needs to ask. And unless it breaks one of these wicks, it's always safer not to really take a entry. And that's exactly what a shooting star, especially the top reversal on an uptrend, talks about. Though not a significant one on its own, a 3 candle pattern like a morning star, evening star is much more significant. But shooting star has multiple combination of things which can work, which cannot work, and a lot more observation which needs to be done. And that's the whole reason, even in our trainings and all the other places where we keep telling people that shooting stars are phenomena which might appear anywhere, but you need to see the next candle, the way it opens, either gap down or at the same price as the open of the shooting star or close of the shooting star, and then it starts kind of moving down. These are kind of the same pin bar hammer pattern, but they are just inverted in nature. The way they look, they are inverted, right? And being inverted, they form either at the bottom reversal or they form at the top of the trend. So you can see that this could be a very nice example. So you can see one shooting star, second shooting star, but the price never kind of leaves the upper side. Eventually you see a rejection which is happening at 535, and then you see a rejection again which is happening almost at the same price, around 10 paise gap, and then it starts kind of moving down. So you know your rejection area, and as the price leaves one of these days, there is a very strong fall which continues to happen. So it's very important we continue to observe these stocks if we ever want to get trade. So that's the fun part with shooting star on the upper side, and then a inverted hammer which can happen on the downside. Okay, so you see these inverted hammer kind of pattern which might occur in combination as a morning star, evening star, in combination as multiple things which can happen through the trades. But for one to really understand what these are, it's very important that you make your observation. The next one is again obviously inverted hammer, which I already spoke about, but when you see the chart pattern, you'll always see that as a hammer pattern, but the only difference is it's inverted. So a hammer pattern technically appears on a downtrend. Inverted hammer also appears on a downtrend. So there is a very strong difference. A lot of people get confused. They think inverted hammer is a shooting star. No, a shooting star happens on a uptrend. Inverted hammer happens on a downtrend. So you will see the same pattern as a shooting star what we are seeing, but it kind of technically happens on a downtrend, right? So that is what which I showed you some time back, that how a candle kind of appears like a shooting star at the bottom of the trend and then it starts moving up. So we made one observation here on one of these candles, right? One of these daily candles, if you highlight it, okay, so it's kind of downtrend just if you see the last 2 to 3 days of data, and then the downtrend reversal is confirmed with the inverted hammer, and you can see that the price is being held. It kind of never breaks that particular level and the stock starts flying. And then let's see if there are any rules which Steve has mentioned. No, I don't see anything on Steve's book in terms of which are very important to read at this juncture. But what's very important to understand is that before we move on, we understand all these reversal patterns and where and when they occur, how they occur, and what's the importance of these things. So look for support and resistances which you are using from a price level perspective, and look for some of these patterns at those levels, whether it's a morning star, evening star, a shooting star, or a inverted hammer which occurs at any given point in time through a trade. So these are very important patterns for one to make their observations. Okay, thanks guys. I hope this video gives you a fair idea on what the morning and evening doji stars are, and what a shooting star is, and what is a inverted hammer. Thank you.